Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, Dancy, all around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver, you're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
Finally time. It's been a long time coming, about a calendar year at this point, but it's time for another episode of Spring Football Reports. A lot has happened since last time we were here talking about the USFL and XFL. In fact, they have now merged and they are one league called the UFL now. So quite a bit has changed. So we're going to go around the room real quick, introduce everybody who's here tonight, and then we'll get right into all the different topics that we have not touched on, which is quite a bit. So we got a lot on the docket for tonight. If there's anything you want us to touch on, make sure you drop that in the comments and we'll make sure to get to it as we go. Aaron, why don't we go ahead and start with you for the introductions?
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Sam. My name's Aaron Sauter, and I write for the UFL News Hub covering the San Antonio Brahmas and the CFL News Hub covering Hamilton Tiger Cats, and I write a weekly predictions article for the IFL.
Pierce, you want to go ahead and go next?
Yeah, go. So I'm Chris. I am Pierce Sports Productions. I'm a small YouTuber trying to make it out of my university. I go to Utah Tech, and I've just been working on football content. And I was here last year for the Spring Football Report, so we're running it back.
Definitely. Pierce will probably be here for most of the episodes, if not all of them. Looking forward to doing many more episodes with you this year, sir. And speaking of people who I'm looking forward to talking to again, Travis, how you been, man? It's been a long time coming, but you're finally back with us out here on Spring Football Reports to talk some outdoor spring football.
Mute? I think you're on mute, buddy.
Okay, it sounds like Travis is working on his camera or his microphone there, but we'll go ahead and we'll go on to Michael. Michael, go ahead and give us a quick introduction, and we'll see if we can't get Travis figured out.
Yeah, I'm Michael Washington. I'm a Shady Sports contributor. As you all know, I got several shows on the network, and I was here for Spring Football Reports every episode last year, and like Pierce, decided to run it back for another season, and definitely amped and ready to go.
Definitely me as well. It's been a long time coming, like I said. In fact, we didn't really cover much of the off-season topics, so we got a lot to cover. We're not going to go over everything that has happened since last time we were on an episode. We're not going to touch on the merger or anything like that. But what we are going to start with tonight, that I really wanted to get into and get your guys' opinions on, was the most recent announcement that the Legends, which I'm not familiar with, to be completely honest, was named the exclusive e-commerce merch and event partner for the UFL. And I think this happened like a week ago at this point. What are you guys' thoughts on Legends becoming the partner? Let's go to Aaron first.
Well, I guess hopefully it leads to higher quality service and products. I don't know anything about Legends. I'm a football guy, so it's an interesting announcement, because it's like y'all didn't have a plan for handling your merch and your facilities independently, and now you're announcing a week before. If this happened a week before, that's really a small window to announce that and get that rolling when it's not done independently by the league.
Absolutely. It definitely seemed like a last minute announcement there. But hey, a lot of these announcements have come at the last minute that we're about to talk about, and still seems like they're kind of building a good foundation here. So, Travis, why don't you go ahead and run into your introduction real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get your opinion on Legends as the e-commerce and event partner for the UFL.
Well, my name is Travis LeBen. I helped out with the spring football reports last year. I've helped out Sam actually for the last 2 years then, because me and him had a USFL show also before the XFL kicked off in 2023. I've also hosted a couple podcasts about the UFC and fighting and stuff. I've also had a amateur MMA fight here in Pennsylvania. That's probably my big two is really football and fighting is, the big two sports that I cover and that I watch.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on Legends being named as the e-commerce and event partner for the UFL?
So I actually haven't heard really anything about it quite yet. Sometimes I end up getting a little bit out of the loop sometimes and stuff. So you mentioning it and I had to be kicked out for a little bit because I couldn't hear what was going on. So I kind of just joined, and I'm not sure what exactly it all entails.
Okay, we'll go through this real quick. Under this partnership, Legends Global Merchandise Division will oversee event merchandise sales, including in-stadium shopping experiences for fans attending UFL events and e-commerce operations, including the league's online retail platform shop.ufl.com. We are thrilled to collaborate with Legends as our exclusive event and e-commerce partner, said Ryan Seegers. Their proven track record of delivering high-quality merchandise and creating engaging fan experiences aligns perfectly with our vision for the UFL. Together, we aim to elevate the fan experience both online and in person. They basically bring an extensive experience in the sports and entertainment industry. So, like I said, I'm not super familiar with them offhand, but, any established brand you can partner with when you're a kind of a fledgling league at this point really can't hurt as long as they don't do anything egregious, I imagine. So, Pierce, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, kind of where you guys were at with everything about it. I looked them up a little bit, and they've been involved with a lot of football teams. I saw the Bucks, I see the Bills here, Cowboys, Rams. So they're involved with NFL teams. They're involved with baseball stadiums themselves. So they're pretty top tier company to partner up with. So I would only assume, just kind of being somebody that's not very familiar with how that type of business works, that this is a great move for them and for the future.
Makes sense. Michael, what are your thoughts on this partnership?
I mean, just doing a little research on Legends when they announced it and diving in. I mean, it's a worldwide company. They have 6 divisions that they run with worldwide. So just because it was announced a week before the start of the season doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't already had a deal in place as well. So, I mean, it's very possible that they just need to go through the legal proceedings to make sure that everything was, T's were crossed and I's were dotted before they could announce it. So it may not be a thrown together quick, deal like a lot of people seem to think it might be, but I don't know. I think it's great. It's good to have a different option other than just Under Armour running everything, and it will definitely, hopefully, drive sales because it appears to be doing really well worldwide. So,
yeah, obviously, if they're partnered with NFL teams, they're doing okay. That's for sure. But
I mean, they're partnered with the Yankees too. Like, just throwing. I mean, that's.
I did see that.
As far as the MLB is concerned, that's pretty legendary. And yes, that's a pun on words. So.
Yeah. I mean, especially in the merchandise side of things. I mean, shoot, there's people that own Yankee merch that aren't even fans of the team. So, yeah, definitely. If you've got that under your belt, you're definitely in a good shape. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to a brand that I do know a little bit more about, and that's Sirius Radio. This also came out recently that all the UFL games will be broadcasting on Sirius Radio nationwide. So I kind of wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. I mean, obviously, it's kind of, I don't want to say dated, but, I would imagine that the crowd that's listening to radio broadcasts of football games at this point are probably a lot smaller than it was, maybe 50, 60 years ago. But at the same time, I still think this is a big step toward kind of looping in some casual fans here that may not otherwise know what the UFL is. Michael, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you might actually be surprised about how many people listen to actually sports radio. To be honest with you, between people that do certain jobs like DoorDash or other driving companies, a lot of people work from home now, so they may not have time to put the game on, but they can listen to it at least, or similar things like that. Because I mean, I know that our Sirius, XM radio is attached to our home, network with our Alexa and all that stuff. So I mean, it's huge. I mean, I don't know what the percentage of Sirius XM radio, subscribers are. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but as far as football is concerned, it's just another way for them to be able to stay in touch with what's going on, and it gives them another option.
Yeah, I completely agree. I personally think at this point, especially with Sirius, you can't really hurt yourself in this particular case. Pierce, what do you think about this?
So I think in the practicality, I think it is a good call to do that because, like you said, a lot of people do in fact use radio for a while. I personally know my mom has Sirius XM, most times of the year. But for me, I think just me as a college student and just being on the younger side of the generation, I don't have Sirius XM. Actually, today, funny enough, for the first couple games, I was busy filming for my college's baseball game. So I was behind camera, couldn't actually physically watch the game. So I just turned on somebody's stream on YouTube and I just listened to it on my AirPod. So, I mean, practicality-wise, I think it's a really good idea, and I think ultimately it does bring in people. I just think people, my perspective, might not use SiriusXM more often enough. But like you said before, it doesn't hurt to kind of just branch out and get out there. So I think overall it's a good thing for the UFL for sure.
I would agree. Anybody who's tuning in right now, no matter which channel you're on, make sure to hit that like button, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tim Capper makes a great point. CFL has been on SiriusXM for years. It's a fantastic option to have. I agree. Again, it's another market that you didn't have necessarily tapped before. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, as an older fan, I'm one of the older people that listen to Sirius Radio and sports on there. I love listening to the CFL on the Sirius Radio. I love listening to the games today on UFL games. It has a different feel to it. I mean, TV is, you can see it. That's cool. I mean, that's the obvious advantage. But listening to the game, I like to visualize while I'm listening. So it's just a different aspect, kind of a different engagement level with the game. And I think anything you can do to get more media coverage is good. So you wouldn't turn away more media coverage, but you hit a different set of demographics with Sirius Radio. And then that's probably a big reason to do it is now you have a chance with TV, you're hitting the younger demographic. With the Sirius Radio, you're hitting people who may not be watching TV right now, but still want to stay engaged with the game. And I think as many angles you can hit your fan base with is going to be a big advantage.
Pull this up real quick. Here is the Sirius XM subscribers right now. So 33.88 million. It does look like it dropped just slightly in that fourth quarter there. But at the same time, 33.88 million, people you might not have reached otherwise. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's not a terrible number to have backing Sirius at all. Travis, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's very helpful. Just like for every alt football league, accessibility is the biggest factor. And this is just another step to make it accessible for the everyday person, for maybe the person who doesn't have cable or can't access it very easily, but they might have Sirius, or maybe like how we were talking about different occupations, truck drivers, or somebody who might not be home when the games are being played. It just opens up another level of still being able to catch the content and, just making it that much more accessible for everybody. And so I think it's a very good move.
Absolutely. And for anybody who wanted to see it, here's the press release for that as well. Pretty basic. It basically just says that the games are going to be available nationwide and when the season started. Moving on, we have kind of a topic that I wanted to get into, and I'm curious about your guys' thoughts on the game balls. In my personal opinion, and I'll go first so I don't, alienate anybody else's opinion, but I think these are rather underwhelming. Maybe I was expecting something that was never going to happen in the first place. Maybe I was expecting them to quote unquote reinvent the wheel here. But I expected more than just the UFL logo slapped on a regular football, and then you get your individual team logos for the team. Maybe one side of the ball was white or something. I don't know, something just different. And to me, this is just not quite unique enough for the aura that the UFL has as a whole. But I'm curious on your guys' opinions on this, and hopefully I didn't influence anybody to be more negative than they were prior to that.
I don't. It's kind of a. I don't know. It's a weird topic, Sam. I think there's nothing wrong with the football. I mean, I think it looks pretty, basic, classic, football. It embodies what the USFL did and the XFL did. It's the only difference is the XFL doesn't have the white X on the edge like the XFL ball had. But I mean, I don't know. I actually like it. I think it looks good. Personally, I think the team logos are a nice little touch on the bottom there, which is pretty standard for most of them. But yeah, I don't know. It's a classic look, and I kind of like the classic look in a sense. But I understand where you're coming from. It's just, I don't know. I didn't think this was going to be a topic that we were talking about.
Hey, man, I sent you a format beforehand. There was very specific topics with graphics included, clearly.
Actually, no, this is true. You did send it, but yeah. I will be honest, though. I thought I was going to be late to this, so.
No, you're all good. You're all good. To be completely honest, I was just curious of your guys' opinions. Maybe it was just a situation where I expected a little bit more than I was ever really going to get. Like I said, but just an interesting touch. I mean, if you look at the UFO logo, they kind of have these little angled things. Maybe you put that at the outside of the football, you blow up that UFL logo so it takes up the whole football, and then the edges are just that silver, and that'd be kind of a little bit different. But I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I just expected something a little bit more, but anybody else have any thoughts on the balls? We can move on real quick. I don't want to spend too much time.
I understand what you mean, being a little underwhelmed. My favorite balls is definitely the XFL 2020, where they had the logos and like the ends of the balls had the colors, like the team colors and everything. So every team had a unique ball that they used and stuff. And, I did really like that. So I kind of do understand. I was a little underwhelmed with this as well. But that's just because I like that ball so much.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I definitely could agree on it. Like, every time I look at the UFL logo, I'm like, that's a football. So I feel like you did kind of hit it onto a point where, like, you could have just had the UFL logo and then the ends were the silver, because that's what I thought that's what I would see out of the logo. So it is a little off-putting that the whole logo is just plastered right there. It does throw me off a little bit. But I like that, they're personalized. They have the little team logos on there. But I definitely could see where you're coming from on it. And, yeah, not my favorite for sure. I don't have a favorite just looking at them. I have to look them up. But I definitely see where you're coming from on you. This is just underwhelming.
That's fair. Aaron,
I have a thought about the footballs. And that is what the design is kind of boring, okay? But you don't want the football to be like not functional. So there's a chance. I've seen some football leagues where you make the logo out of material that's slippery or something, and it's disorienting and it makes a lot of fumbles, and it becomes a story of the league. I don't think the football should be the story of the league. It should be a functional tool. And I didn't see any issues with the balls today, and that'd be my main concern from a football land is, are the footballs hindering good play? Or they look kind of lame. I don't think anyone. I think fans from a distance are not going to say, "Man, those footballs are ugly." They're going to say, "Man, that guy kept fumbling the football." I think when Luis Perez, had a fumble early in the game, if that would have been because of a football issue, you might lose the league there, because if people are going to be dropping balls all the time because of the design of the ball, that's going to be a huge factor. I didn't see that today. I thought it was functional. And I think if the design is the breaking point, that's probably not it. You know what I'm saying?
I want to say two things also real quick. Going back to the SiriusXM thing real quick. The other thing about SiriusXM too is it might be a cheaper option than people want to watch it, because it is a fairly cheaper option across the board for subscribers. And the second thing is with the footballs, like I understand that you wanted something a little bit more, and I could fully understand where you're coming from with that. But if you take a look at what The Rock and Danny Garcia have done with the XFL since they took over the XFL, they kind of toned down a lot of the gimmicky stuff. And I say gimmicky stuff, but like a lot of the more I don't want to say outrageous, but more of the flamboyant stuff, right? Like we got with the XFL 2020 and all that other stuff. So they toned it down. Like you take a look at the logo, it's not as, bam in your face. It's classy, it's clean. And the USFL really always had that very similar same thing. So I think when they combined the two, they wanted to keep that kind of same, format. So I think the footballs is just another extension of that, clean look, simple, basic, but it shows the UFL right there, and that's what they wanted to go with. But like Aaron said, functionality is the biggest thing when it comes to the footballs.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, honestly, I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to nitpick here. Realistically, it was just something that I expected a little bit more based on like what you said. Is there? I don't want to say gimmicks, but it was a little bit more gimmicky last season. There was a little bit more flamboyancy to it, for lack of a better term. So honestly, I think that it was, it's not a terrible ball by any stretch. It just was a little underwhelming. And maybe some of that comes from the fact that I follow indoor football really closely. And it seems like every team has their own unique ball, and it's a little bit different than everybody else's. So that could be completely part of my bias, to be honest here. But to move on, I did want to touch real quick on the Bolt 6 partnership as well, but I am honestly not super familiar with that company either. Anybody have any sort of knowledge on Bolt 6 or really what they're bringing to the table for the XFL or the UFL? I'm sorry. Oh.
I'm doing a very quick search.
Sorry, what were you saying, Aaron?
Oh, sorry, Aaron. Go ahead.
I guess I don't have a lot of knowledge in Bolt 6. Do you have any background information on what Bolt 6 like? What are they providing to the league that seems to make it better? That'd be my question as a fan. Is Bolt 6 okay? How's it going to show up?
That's a good point. Give me just a second.
So according to what I'm seeing here, is Bolt 6 was founded in 2021 and has become the leader in sports technology dedicated to enhancing the sporting experience for everyone involved. They have groundbreaking products, optical tracking, video replay, XR products. It's helped to design and improve officiating and then the fan and athlete experience. They're going to deliver ball spotting with unprecedentedly low latency and high accuracy, setting a new standard in sports technology. So they're a technical. They developed the True Line technology, and I believe the USFL used this as well, if I remember correctly. At least they use that technology. But that's where you get the ball spotting without actually having to measure. It's 11 inches short or whatever it is. It's like a really accurate ball placement. So that's the technology piece of it. I think the AAF was trying to use something similar to it in 2019, but it wasn't quite as advanced as it sounds like Bolt 6 has made it.
Did the USFL use something like that last year? Didn't they have some kind of sensor or something in the ball to market? So it's just kind of an extension of that, I guess. I mean, anything to clean up officiating and take away controversy, I guess. That's something that holds back the NFL. Is there's a lot of controversy on calls, and people get turned off by that, and you get a whole narrative about scripting and all that crap. I think anything you can do to make it straight up and legit and consistent in terms of officiating and production and viewing is great. That's what people want. They want to see good competition, and they want to see a good outcome. And I guess if that's what that's doing, that's a good partnership to have.
It's also very possible that Bolt 6 was USFL's partnership from 2001 when they first debuted, or 2022 when they first debuted, because we didn't really get the partnership press releases like we do through the XFL with the USFL. So it is very possible that they were the ones that were always there with the USFL, and it was one of the ones they brought over. I know the XFL used similar technology last year too, but they did not announce who their partnership was. I do not believe. Or if they did, I don't think it's Bolt 6. I think Bolt 6 is a new company for them as well. So
That's fair. I honestly can't remember who the company was that they partnered with the USFL, but I do remember all the talk about the chips and the balls and how it was affecting the kicking and the throwing at first, and all that's talk in 2022. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the review of the games. Basically, we had 2 games today. It's a little bit of weird timing, so we're going to split the difference. Basically, we're going to talk about 2 reviews, and then we'll get into previews. We're going to do it a little bit differently for anybody who tuned in last year. Last year, we would get everybody's opinion on every game. To be quite honest, we don't have 5 hours to be here tonight, so we're going to go ahead and cut it down a little bit. Each person will give their opinion on a couple different games, and we'll kind of split it up, and then everybody's going to get their predictions at the end. But we're going to go ahead and talk about Arlington versus Birmingham first, and we're going to go to our resident Birmingham Stallions fan first. Pierce, you're our guy here. So real quick before we get into it, this game was played at Choctaw Stadium. 14,153 fans per Mike Mitchell, who, again, I don't know how he gets those numbers, but somehow he got them before the Fox guys had them. So kudos to him. But anyway, Pierce, what were your thoughts on this game? A 27-14 victory for the Stallions.
Ultimately, my response kind of goes into the 2 halves that were done. The first half was sloppy. I think ultimately our offense, my big thing is win. It's going to be very easy. The only way they can make it hard for themselves is if they made mistakes. And Matt Corral, he made mistakes. And I know we were all going into this thinking Matt Corral is going to be this big deal, that he's going to really be great with this team. I think he still has more proof for here after just kind of listening in. I know those picks weren't his fault, but he was still trying to really work out what this team is. And I just feel like the running game was great. I think it's pretty solid person, really did well. I think I'm pretty solid. And our defense, stop the running game. I know that was been a problem for Arlington, was the running game last season, but they continued to pretty stomp them down. Sal Canella, who was one of their biggest receiving targets, didn't get anything going until the game was really decided. And ultimately, to me, they held up pretty well. I think the defense was consistent. Special teams, Young Gain was great. Wyman, he only needed to punt a couple times. He did pretty solid. He was 50%, but he didn't really need to do more than that. And ultimately, to me, the offense just was sloppy in the first half, and then they were able to make some adjustments in the halftime, and they were able to control the game pretty easily from there. And ultimately, we were just a better champion team between the 2. It was pretty simple. It was pretty obvious. Arlington never had a chance. All the XFL extremists, y'all got to stay quiet now, because we just beat your XFL champions. So giddy up. Let's move on to next week.
I had a feeling that was coming. So, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but you cover the Brahmas, correct?
I do cover the Brahmas, yes.
Okay. Do you want to give your opinion on the Renegades and the Stallions?
Yeah. So what stood out to me is, unfortunately, because I'm an XFL person that Pierce was talking about, the running game of the Stallions looks incredible. And I watched the USFL last year, and I was like, well, they look pretty good. But then I watched them today, and I was like, they look like a different league of team in the running game. The running back is running hard. Their O-line's blowing them off the ball. That opens your passing game up. Matt Corral is getting some time to, look for his guys to come open, and play action off that running game is going to be Really explosive once they get it together. If both teams came out rusty, they looked like they did not, no preseason games. You could see they played no preseason games. But the running game of the Stallions stood out to me, and I was like, that's going to be a problem for XFL teams if they're going to do that every week.
Yeah, I would agree. They had a success rate per the UFL website of 49% on their runs. So pretty crazy to see that. And then they had 5 runs stuffed overall in the game, which ultimately only amounted to 14% of their run plays. So ultimately, I was pretty basically I don't want to say surprised, but this was more or less what I expected. I expected about an 8-point victory by the Stallions. I didn't expect them to necessarily blow Arlington out. But I was, I guess, one of the few that was really saying that the Stallions were going to win this one. A lot of people had the Renegades winning because they were the home team. But honestly, I just had a lot of faith in what Zach Potter and Skip Holtz have done there as far as the roster. And I'm excited to see what comes the rest of the way. So, honestly, this was a pretty solid game from them. I expected the run game to take over the game. I did not expect them to give Adrian Martinez as much playing time as they did as early as they did. So I wanted to shout that out because I was really excited about that. Pierce, what do you got to say, buddy?
So I got 2 things coming off your segment. One, I was generally shocked just how imbalanced it was of how many people thought the Renegades were going to win it. I understand that they're the XFL champs. Luis Perez looked really good in the last haul, but you got to remember that they were an under 500 team in the XFL. The only reason they made it was because their playoff rules were whack. So to me, it just really blew me off that so many majority thought that the Stallions were going to do really good. It just threw me off. And then the moment they lost, I was like, this is why you should at least think about it a bit more. And I do understand that some people just, simply watch the XFL and didn't watch the USFL, but it just didn't make sense to me. And then to your second point about Adrian Martinez, if you looked at the first season with the Stallions when it was Jamar Smith and Alex Magoo frequently did come into games. He did play some snaps. There was, of course, the one time they tried him at receiver, which never do that again, which they didn't. So it didn't shock me that Martinez was in the game. He obviously looked faster than Corral, and I think that was the main reasons why he got play time until he got hurt. I don't know where his status is, but I guess to stay on the topic, is anybody really surprised that Jamar Smith was the third inactive quarterback? Because I know some people thought that Jamar would maybe keep the favoritism with Holtz and maybe get the backup behind Corral, but he was seeing inactive. So I do want to know if you guys were a little, just shocked that he was the inactive third guy.
I was.
I just want to point out, Pierce, real quick, that the USFL had the exact same playoff rules.
That's why Michigan ended up in, actually.
Pittsburgh.
You're right. Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
You're right. My fault.
I have other thoughts about this game, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, so I was very surprised that Jamar Smith was the third quarterback that was inactive. And honestly, I expected him to be the 2 at the worst. I expected him to start, to be quite honest with everybody. And I wrote about it multiple times this offseason due to the fact that, you can't possibly be any more versed in that offense outside of Skip Holtz. He's literally been in it for 6 seasons plus at this point. So, I expected him to have the advantage over any other player. But I guess Philip Montgomery coming in was a bigger factor in the whole thing than maybe I expected. And maybe I'm just overplaying that as well. And maybe it was just a time for them to move forward with Corral because he's got a lot of promise. But I was really surprised to see that, especially given the fact that they went with Adrian Martinez as the 2. Although looking back at this game, I think Martinez was probably going to be the quarterback 2, no matter who started. If you kind of look at how this game played out,
Corral's a difference maker. If he can keep the confidence of that coaching staff, and play to his full potential and ability, he is a difference maker. and
I
it's
would say
scary to see
Corral
him
had
in
the
that.
2 best throws of the day.
Oh yeah, he had the best throw of the day for sure, 100%. I
He
mean,
had that
you could
one that
even
he
say,
dropped in the bucket right before half,
Yep.
and then that one that really kept him in it with the running back out of the backfield. Perfect. Hit him right in the hands, caught him in stride, and it was a huge gain for the running back out of the backfield, and that's what set up a score for them. I would say he had the 2 best throws of the day.
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, I can't argue that he looked good. There was times where he looked a little, I don't want to say off kilter, but I guess, it looked like the timing, the chemistry with the wide receivers was not quite there yet. But I think as the season goes, we're only going to see him improve, especially as he gets more and more familiar with his teammates. Keep in mind, these guys only have 3.5 weeks basically of training camp. So it's not like they've got mini camps and OTAs and all the stuff that the NFL has to get that chemistry built up in a season's time. But moving on to the other game tonight, which actually I did not catch the final score on, so give me just a moment on that. But we are going to move on to the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Michigan Panthers game, which I was kind of goofily calling the Pat Ruffino game because he covered both of these teams last season. So 9,444 fans showed up to Ford Field, which I got to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed by, especially considering the fact that the USFL was in Michigan last season. But I'm curious to see, get your thoughts. Travis, let's go to you first.
I would like to see that attendance a little bit higher. I don't know if some of it is because the Panthers were a 4-6 football team last year. Some of that might be a little bit of the factor. Some of it might be the factor that they were pretty sizable underdogs in this matchup too, against the Battlehawks. Of course, the Michigan Panthers ended up pulling out a win, which shocked me. Personally, I bet on the Battlehawks, so that ruined my parlay. But and I mean, I'm happy. I'll put it like this. I wanted the Battlehawks to win, but I'm happy with the way they lost because that was a perfect storybook ending. Michigan Panther kicker hitting a 64-yard field goal to end it. I mean, it was a perfect ending though. That game started off a little slow. Both offenses couldn't quite click. And then the fourth quarter started, and that's whenever these offenses started picking up. And fourth quarter, A.J. McCarron started lighting it up, started hitting these throws, and then E.J. Perry comes right back at him. And the fourth quarter was very entertaining. We just had to deal with the rest of the game, them trying to find it out a little bit. But it was a very entertaining fourth quarter, at least. And I just wish my XFL bias would have won, but it is what it is.
I will say that for the first two games to come out like they did, yes, there were some miscues, but I think overall the games were competitive, and realistically, that's what we all want to see at the end of the day. So I don't think, again, either one of these got out of hand at any point. I don't think at any point any of these teams were out of the game. But Michael, I wanted to get your thoughts next on this game. What did you think about this 18-16 victory by the Panthers?
So, I mean, with all the teams that we're going to see over this weekend, we're going to see some first half struggles. We're going to see some timing issues, et cetera, because offenses are always behind defenses when it comes to this, especially short training camps. But that's how it is in almost all football. When it comes to this specific game, A.J. McCarron and the Battlehawks, I don't even want to blame it on McCarron. I'm going to say the Battlehawks gave this game away to the Panthers because I don't know what Bruce Gradkowski was doing, because it was the most conservative play calling I think I've ever seen in my life from a team that literally could not run the ball, but you were still trying to run the ball. It made zero sense to me why you're down on the 4-yard line and you run 4 straight, I'm going to cuss, fucking runs when you haven't been able to run at all this entire friggin' game. And yet here we are getting ready to punch it in, and you're just going to run it right into the teeth of this defense. And the Panthers defense, all the kudos to them. They're incredible. They look good. They look like they may they look like they improved on the team that they were last year, and they were one of the best defensive units in the USFL last year. It was just the offense that didn't get going. EJ Perry needs to improve. I think the final score of this game was like 18-16 or something like that, but you know, I don't think EJ Perry can get it done. This is going to be a team that's going to end up being 4-6 again if he doesn't improve, because I was seeing the same issues last year. Even though when he took over the team, the team won games, it was because he wasn't doing anything to hurt them. But now they're giving him more and asking him to do more as the actual entrenched starter. You start seeing those mistakes again. So I need to see him improve in order to be able to get this Michigan Panthers team up to where I think they want to be, or with that defense they could very well be. I completely agree. As a pure passer, he was god awful. Luckily for his legs, and he was able to make smarter decisions down the stretch. I mean, 50% completion is not going to cut it. No matter what quarterback you are, it's not going to cut it. So I want to see that a little bit more from the Panthers, but overall, I just think it was just really poor game plan by the Battlehawks and Gregkowski, and I'd like to see them open it up more and trust AJ McCarron. He was your XFL MVP last year for a reason. Like, you know, you guys missed the playoffs even though you were 7-3 or whatever, or 6-4, 7-3, I believe. But you still were at the point where you were one of the better teams in the league. Like, trust AJ a little bit more, and when you get that opportunity, you saw the touchdown to Marcel Aitman. Aitman had a great game. But it just, something about that Battlehawks offense was just really, really bad. And if the run game doesn't improve, they're going to be missing out on the playoffs yet again. So
that's completely fair. They definitely looked like they were missing a couple pieces when it came to the run game. Definitely very disappointing performance by EJ Perry. Considering that he also played last season, for the fact that he has still not thrown a first passing touchdown in the UFL or USFL. Kind of concerning. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this game?
I basically thought the Battlehawks came out conservative, as Michael was saying. They came out conservative. I think they felt they were the superior team, so if they come out and they don't throw interceptions and turn the ball over, they're going to be fine. But it turns out it was not the case. The teams were pretty even, and they weren't good enough at being conservative, I guess, to win the game that way. They needed to open it up. At receiver, the Battlehawks are a pretty good team, and they have a quarterback with NFL experience. They need to open that up. And if you lose the game because you go out there and you throw the ball 40 times and you throw 3 interceptions, I can live with that. So I think they are the better team. It'd be hard for me from a Battlehawks perspective to lose that game to Michigan because you came out and played conservative football, as if you were not trying to lose the game. That's what it looked like from what I saw, as they were trying to not lose the game. Well, the Panthers, really, the expectations are low for them. Not saying they're a bad team, but they came in with lower expectations, and they just let loose. I think we saw probably the Panthers' better game and the Battlehawks playing as if they didn't want to lose the game, and that's always the recipe for losing. If you don't just go out there and let it fly and do your best thing, you're gonna put yourself in a bad spot. And that's how I feel about the Battlehawks, and I think Michigan took advantage of it, which means they're a pretty good team. They may not be the best team in the league, but they're going to be a pretty good team. And if you come out and don't play your game, they have the capability of beating you.
Shout out to West Philadelphia too, by the way. Yeah, I brought that back.
I love it. So speaking of which, we're going to take a quick moment, and then we'll be right back with the preview for the Sundays game.
This is Current. It's the card my parents use to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school.
Oh, wow.
This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I use to do the things that really matter. This is Current. Visit current.com and download the app for free today.
Shout out to Current, one of our sponsors here, affiliate sponsors. So make sure you use our code when you sign up for Current. They're definitely one of the best banking apps I've found so far. But to go ahead and move on, just for anybody who pays attention to the National Arena League, the Beef just took the lead over the Spartans. It's 37-32. and we'll give you updates as they come in on that. But we'll go ahead and move on to the Sunday games. We've got, excuse me, the DC Defenders at the San Antonio Brahmas and the Memphis Showboats at the Houston Roughnecks. Roughnecks. Dear Lord, sorry about that.
That was
Stumbled
rough.
all over that one. It was rough. It was pretty bad. So let's go ahead and go right into the DC game. And of course, we've got a couple DC fans in the house, so we're going to go ahead and go to them first. So let's go to Michael first on this game.
You know, one of the main reasons why I thought Arlington was going to beat Birmingham today was because it was a quarterback change. You know, I liked Matt. I love Matt Corral, but I thought that the quarterback change was going to be a little bit too much to overcome where Luis Perez was coming back. So naturally, when I was picking this game, I was picking DC to beat San Antonio because of the quarterback change there in San Antonio. I think DC is still going to win this game because San Antonio did struggle last year as far as it's concerned. You know, coaching change, all that stuff. But Wade Phillips is, I mean, what can you say about Wade Phillips? He's a legendary coach in the league. You can't take him for granted by any means. And, you know, I just think that DC with Jordan Tiamu, who was arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league last year, you could have made him MVP as well. And I think that even without De'Aaron King, this run game, and Abram Smith too, let's be honest, Abram Smith is out for DC as well, but I think they have Cameron Harris. I think he's good enough to be able to, he won't match what Abram Smith did, but he'll be able to do just enough. I think DC is going to win this game, and I'm going to say probably 26 to 14.
Fair enough. 26 to 14. Got it. Travis, let's go to you next. Your other DC resident fan.
All right. I mean, I like the prediction, of course. I'm obviously going to go with DC. I'm not going to waver from there, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about why. Of course, Wade Phillips is going to have this defense very strong, and that's the only thing that kept the San Antonio Brahmas in games last year. One thing that concerns me is they're missing their number one corner, Luke Barku, who's currently on the Steelers. Speaking of another former Steelers player, the DC Defenders have a running back, Darius Hoggins. They also have that Cameron Harris, and they still have Puka Williams, correct? It still worries me that Abram Smith is gone. I'm interested to see what this running game will look like without him. I know running backs got reps even with him in the room last year, but that is a huge blow. This is a guy who led the XFL in rushing, and he led the league by more than 300 yards last year too. So very substantial player that you're missing there. But like Michael said, Jordan Tiamu, experience, knows this team. We have good weapons. Our defense is still strong. San Antonio, like I said in the group chat the other day, a lot of people are saying that they're going to be bottom feeder team in the league. I hope they're not. I think they're going to prove some people wrong. I just don't know if they do it this week. I think they're going to have to take some time to click, especially like you said with a quarterback change, new to spring football. So give me DC. Don't think it's going to be as high scoring as Michael, but I think it's going to be 18-12 in favor of DC, like I said.
Gotcha. Aaron, you cover the San Antonio Brahmas, so I want to go to you last on this one. Also, if you get a moment, check out all of his articles on UFLnewshub.com. But go ahead, Aaron, let's hear your thoughts on this one.
Okay, so this matchup in my head is made for DC to come out and dominate with their running game and play action and their dominant defense. I think defensively, Greg Williams is going to try to make a statement this week and pop it off with heavy blitzing and man coverage and see if San Antonio can handle that. And with a first-time UFL starting quarterback, Chase Garbers, if he cannot handle that, it may get ugly. And in my head, that's what I'm thinking might come out and happen. But in my heart, I love the San Antonio Brahmas. And how do you beat a Greg Williams defense? You beat him over the top. You got to beat him with big plays. That's why he's not hurting anyone's feelings. That's why he's not in the NFL anymore, is because he always brought the heat, even when it was not the best plan to bring the heat. This week, it's going to be the best plan to bring the heat unless San Antonio can hold their water. If you come out and San Antonio's quarterback is a punching bag and they can't run the ball and That's going to negate the good defense of the Brahmas. They have a really good defense up front. Their secondary scares me. On any play action, they're going to give it up because the Houston Roughnecks secondary was not the best in the league, and that's what they pretty much have. That their 7-man, their front, their box is awesome, but if they can't put points on the board, I don't think it's going to matter because DC is going to ground and pound. They're going to come out, run their quarterback. They're going to make you be disciplined. If you're flying around and not completely sure what you want to do in terms of your game plan defensively, they're going to move the ball well, kind of like Birmingham did against Arlington. I think the answer is for the Brahmas to make it a shootout. DC is not built for a shootout, and they are susceptible to getting beat over deep in that Greg Williams defense, but you have to have the mental fortitude to go for it and not sit there and let them just wail on you the whole time. I because of my heart, the Brahmas winning 24-22. All week, I considered DC winning 24-18, but at the last second, I was like, hey, I watched a Wade Phillips interview, and he says they're going to be aggressive, and if they're aggressive and they put it vertically, I think they have a chance to win. I wouldn't bet on it, though.
If you like defensive matchups, this might be one of the games for you. Two of the best defensive coordinators or defensive minds, I guess, because Wade Phillips is the head coach. Go ahead, Travis.
I will add one thing, like you were saying, the best way to, beat a Greg Williams defense is by, having your weapons beat their man on one-on-one coverage. And San Antonio has the players to do it. TJ Vasher, Cody Latimer, Landon Akers. They have guys who can win one-on-one coverage. Katie Cannon's on their roster also. They have guys who can do it. It's just purely going to be if they can, give Garbers any time to be able to.
Travis, what was your score on that game again?
It was 18-12.
Thank you. Did not catch that second half here. So moving on to the Memphis versus Houston game. This one should be quite interesting, and actually the attendance looks promising for Houston so far. In fact, let me pull up the graphic real quick. This is just from Ticketmaster, so this isn't an official number yet, obviously. We're just kind of going off what's sold out at the moment. But this is what it looks like right now. And as you can see on the right there, Memphis looks fairly full. It's not going to be a huge number by any stretch, but it's definitely a solid crowd. So definitely excited to see this game. Very curious to hear Pierce's thoughts on this one.
So this one was a pretty interesting matchup to me. This one, I think it's pretty obvious for me because Houston's, well, I guess in this case, Gambler's problem, because that's essentially what they are, is they're very inconsistent. If it seemed like to me where their defense was doing a good job, their offense just couldn't get anything going, except for maybe the exception of a Mark Thomas, which they don't have. That's another point that I'll bring up later on. Or if their offense is clicking with Mark Thompson and Justin Hall, their defense can't stop the run for the life of them against Birmingham. So I feel like for me, they're just the most inconsistent team going into this week. While the Showboats essentially not only have Case Cokus, who I think is really pretty solid, but you have a lot of ex-Breaker players, and the Breakers on top with DeFilippo is going to be a pretty hard team to beat. And with just the Roughnecks and consistency, and on top of Mark Thompson being out, Chris Odom being out, it just doesn't seem like for me that like the Roughnecks are going to be able to pull it off with how the Showboats. I just think they're just better built right now. So I think not thinking, but I am going with the Showboats here, and I'm going to go with them 24-13.
All right. Interesting. Travis, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, you brought up a lot of really good points. Earlier in the week, in my brain, this game was a pure pick'em, and I had no idea who I was going to pick today. I literally decided who I was going to pick probably 5 minutes ago after, thinking about it a little bit more. So, of course, Mark Thompson being out is a huge factor for the I wanted to call them the Gamblers, but for the Roughnecks, I think the experience of Case Cookus getting the start here for the Showboats, I think that's really going to be the main factor. New spring football starting quarterback over on Houston side. And I just think Case Cookus is going to step up to the occasion. And I have the Showboats winning with a score of 22-14.
22-14. Got it. Interesting. 2 Memphis choices so far. So we liking something we see there. Michael, what are your thoughts on this game?
Since my host decided to mute my mic because I forgot to put mine up on my headset. No, you're good, Sam. I'm just fucking with you. The thing about this is I think a lot of people, Pierce brought it up. John DiFilippo went over from New Orleans. He drafted a bunch of Breakers players to come over with him for the most part. Jonathan Adams, Sage Surratt, they're going to be there. The quarterback obviously is different. Case Cookus comes over from Philadelphia, but Cookus was one of the better quarterbacks in the league last year, playing behind a really awful Stars offensive line. Let's be honest. I mean, the Memphis Breakers offensive line can't be any worse than what he was playing behind with the Stars for sure. I have made Memphis my USFL team because, I have to have one without the Breakers there, and DiFilippo was there. I still hate the uniform, still hate the logo, but whatever. They're awful, Pierce. I completely agree with you. And I know you're Birmingham, whatever, biased. But I like what I see with the Showboats. Now, the Gamblers or Roughnecks, it's the Roughnecks parading as the Gamblers or the Gamblers parading as the Roughnecks. I'm not sure what you want to call it, but it's an interesting dynamic there because I feel like they had a lot of turnover on that roster across the board. With 8 teams being kind of dwindled out, I feel like every team is going to improve in some capacity. This team is the biggest wild card, I think, in the USFL division because you don't know what you're going to get. It's not the Roughnecks roster from last year. It's a different coaching staff, but it's still also not really the Gamblers roster either. With Mark Thompson now, who's one of the mainstays, there's some pieces that are back, but overall it's not. It feels like they had more of a turnover than anybody else did. So I don't really know what to expect. I'm going to go with Memphis in this, but this is probably my least confident pick of the weekend, just because. But I'm going to say 24 to 17. I'll go with a more traditional score. Something will happen that I think will be like that. But yeah, 24-17 roughly will be my prediction. But I'm going with Memphis because I agree with you, Sam. I think Sage Surratt will eat with Cookus.
All right, so it's a clean sweep from Memphis this week. We are going to move on to our next week predictions, our week 2 predictions. So you got a little bit of insight on tomorrow's games. If you haven't gotten your bets in and you want to take some people's advice here, just to recap, we all have Memphis winning, or Travis, Pierce, and Michael all have Memphis winning around 22 to 24 points, and they expect the Houston Roughnecks to only put up about 3 scores. We have it 13 to 17 points. And then in the DC versus San Antonio game, it looks like we're expecting roughly 20 points by DC and then roughly 12 to 22 points by San Antonio. So for what that's worth, we had 2 picks on San Antonio, or 2 picks on DC, 1 pick on San Antonio, and then all 3 on Memphis. But moving on to our week 2 predictions. Week 2's got some interesting matchups. You've got San Antonio versus Memphis in Memphis. You've got Arlington versus St. Louis in St. Louis. You got Birmingham versus Michigan. Birmingham's on the road again. Houston versus DC at Audi Field in front of the Beer Snake, as we all know. So definitely going to be some interesting games here. We're going to start with the first game of the weekend, which is the San Antonio Brahmas at the Memphis Showboats. And we will go to, we'll just go right around the room real quick, and we'll go to Aaron first.
Well, I think how the Brahmas approach this game will depend on how the DC game goes. But every game this year, if the Brahmas come out conservative, I think they're going to have a hard time moving the ball and putting points against the best teams in the league. I think Memphis has done the best job of elevating themselves during the player allocation and free agency process. And if you don't come out ready to win the game, then you're going to slowly die by 1,000 cuts and lose the game to them. Brahmas need to come out and just pop it off and get after it. And if you lose the game by 10, 15 points because you played aggressive, I think you can live with that rather than losing by 2 points because you came out and let them beat you physically.
That's fair. Do you have a score prediction?
I'm gonna have to see what tomorrow looks like for the Brahmins. Because the Brahmins could come out and blow it up, and they may skew how I feel about them against Memphis.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Travis, let's get your thoughts next.
So San Antonio versus the Showboats. I'm going to say, like I said, for the DC game, I'm going to say DC wins. But I think San Antonio is going to come into this one rejuvenated, finding some of that timing, though, late, starting to click a little bit more, like we'll see these offenses clicking and more as the season progresses. So I'm actually going to have the Brahmas winning this one, and I'm just going to throw a score out there. I think it's going to be a really close game, but I think the Brahmas defense is going to be the factor of this, and I think it's going to be 18-16 for the Brahmas.
All right. Pierce, let's go to you next. What are your score predictions on this one?
So this one's very interesting just because both these teams have yet to play. And for me, I know Michael said that the Roughnecks was his big wild card. For me, the Brahmas are my big wild card. I feel like we really don't know what we got with Garbers. And ultimately, they have the offensive weapons. Their defense also is interesting to me. But, I just didn't – it's just very hard for me to see. Kind of like what Aaron said. It's just I need to see what they look like tomorrow. Maybe we get the good part of Garbers. Maybe we get a very not great team. So – for me, I think just kind of how I've heavily been with the Showboats, kind of like I mentioned, and also maybe with a little bias of watching more USFL ball. Probably for now, I'm going to stick with the Showboats here, but I really need to see what the Brahmas can do, and we'll see where we can go from there. I probably also not making any score predictions because I think it's just way too early to really figure that out.
It's okay. I understand you're scared to give us your predictions. No, I'm just kidding. Michael, what are your thoughts on this game?
I mean, it is hard not seeing these two play based on based upon what I believe is going to happen tomorrow is what I'm going to base this one off of. It's going to be very hard for me to trust true rookie quarterbacks. Chase Garbers is a true rookie quarterback in the sense that he has not started in the league, whereas at least Matt Corral has shown the potential and the difference, but Birmingham's a different animal. I think all the other rookie quarterbacks you're going to have to try to you're going to have to take with a grain of salt just because you don't know what you're going to get, right? So I'm going to side with Case Cookus in Memphis, even though he's with a new team in this one. And I'm going to probably give a score prediction because, DeFilippo in New Orleans scored in streaks last year. So I'm going to give him another one over 20. I'm going to say 26-18 in this game. I think Garbers will improve as the year goes on, but that's a very tough first 2 weeks for him.
That's fair.
He has to improve fast because he's got a Quentin Dormady breathing down his neck too.
You're not wrong. Actually, I was surprised to see Garbers was starting, and actually we can get into that in a minute in our final thoughts. But
I have words for sure.
Definitely. I mean, honestly, that was probably a good subject to have on here. There was some of the surprising quarterbacks, so we can get into that here in a minute. I've also got Memphis winning this one. To be completely honest, heading into this season, pairing Case Cookus with John DeFilippo, I think was honestly the worst possible thing that could have happened for other teams in this league. I honestly think that immediately when those two got together, Case Cookus became an MVP favorite in the league. And that's just my personal opinion, but we saw what he was able to do with, like Michael said, with really poor offensive line play last season. So far it's looked a little bit better from what I've seen from camp and what I think they have talent wise. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow, of course, but at the same time, I just think Memphis has a lot of talent on that offensive side. I think it's realistically more talent than Case Cookus has had since since 22 when he had Bug Howard and Jordan Sewell healthy. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to say 24-17 Memphis. And then let's go ahead and move on to the next game at hand, which is the Arlington Renegades versus the St. Louis Battlehawks, which this is another interesting one. Arlington was obviously the championship team last season, and the Battlehawks were a team that everybody thought should have been in the playoffs instead of Arlington. So kind of an interesting matchup here. Aaron, what's your prediction on this one?
So with a week to adjust, they will maybe catch their flow a little bit. I think Arlington's an interesting team where they need to run the ball and RPO off that and get some play action going. I think Arlington is what Arlington is. So I would say Battlehawks will probably be the most improved team from the XFL side and put up points, and I could see them winning this game 26-18.
Okay, 26-18. I like it. And you said that was St. Louis?
St. Louis, yes.
Okay, just wanted to double check on that. Awesome. So let's go to Travis next. What is your prediction on the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Arlington Renegades?
Is this in the Dome or is this in Arlington?
It is in the Dome. Yep.
It's in the Dome. If it's in the Dome, I gotta go with San Antonio. I think they're gonna come out a lot more aggressive, and I think they're gonna trust AJ McCarron a lot more. We saw the biggest plays of this game today were whenever they trusted AJ McCarron to make the plays. Touchdown to Marcel Aitman, 1-point conversion, gotta have it. Put it in AJ's hands. Conversion to Jake Sutherland. I think they're going to trust him a lot more, which is what they should have done this week, which we already spoke of. But I'm thinking that they're going to do it next week. So I'm going to go with a score prediction of something like a 24-18 in favor of the Battlehawks.
Okay, 24-18. Ironically, very similar to Aaron's score, but we won't mention that at all. Pierce, what is your prediction for this week?
All right, so this one will be easy for me because we got both these teams playing. So I think playing at the Dome is going to be very significant for the team, and at least between the two losing teams here, one team in the second half made the game entertaining and competitive, and they almost even won the game. One team did not. And I feel like with the Battlehawks, they just had a good shot at it. They just, like many of you said, went conservative. And to me, just like watching my team go against him in the Renegades, like McCarron should have a field day, should be pretty easy to throw on him. And even if they somehow stick to running the ball, showing with Marable and Percy Jr., even the Battlehawks could probably get some running game with Wayne Goldman, who, has been behind Saquon Barkley in the league. So I think ultimately he will make that next step up. I just feel like this week wasn't a good week for him. And for me, I heavily am going with the Battlehawks here. And my score prediction is 31-24.
High scoring game. 55 points Pierce has being scored. Michael, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Luis Perez for, I believe, being the first quarterback in 3 different seasons, being the first touchdown for those leagues ever, or whatever it is.
All those games.
The New Jersey Generals in 2022, the Las Vegas Vipers in 2023, and the Arlington Renegades in 2024. He threw the first touchdown pass in all 3 of those leagues in the season. I just wanted to give the shout out there.
Real quick, I just wanted to say that's incredibly interesting when you think that in New Jersey he was not originally on the roster, and in Vegas he was not expected to start.
Yep. And then in Arlington this year, he came over mid-season last year. He was not with the Renegades last year at the start of the season. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that. It's crazy for me to think that these 2 teams, one of them will be 0-2 to start the year. And it's even crazier to think that tomorrow's game between DC and San Antonio is going to give a 1-game lead in the XFL conference to whoever wins that game, because there will be 3 teams that will be 0-1. So it's crazy to me to think about that. But with that being said, if St. Louis doesn't open things up, and I fully expect them to do it at home. They want to put on a show for their fans that are going to sell out that arena, sell out the dome. Arlington's got to get their timing down because Luis Perez looked really rough in the second half. First half looked great. Second half looked a little suspect. But I think Arlington will get it together eventually. It's just surprising to me to see them come out so flat in the second half. And I know that that's not that's not typical Bob Stoops, right? So I think Arlington is going to make this game actually closer than people think. Because I think St. Louis I think Gronkowski will start off a little slow, and I think eventually will open it up. I do not think that Stoops is going to let the second half adjustments beat him every week. So I do think St. Louis is going to edge out this game, but it's going to be much closer than people think, and I think it's going to be 26-24 with St. Louis winning that game.
Oh, wow. All right. Also 50 points scored there. So it sounds like a lot of us have this being a high-scoring game because I expect St. Louis to cross the 30-point mark as well. I actually have them scoring 30. I'm thinking about 17 from Arlington. Man, I'm going to sound like a hater once again. I'm on record several times as saying I'm not a huge fan of Luis Perez. I think he's just limited as a player physically. And that's no knock on him. Honestly, he's been able to find success due to his intelligence, his football IQ. And, I do have a lot of respect for him. I think that there's a lot of ways that you can bottle him up and you can beat him. He's not the type of guy who's going to push the ball downfield a lot. So you can kind of creep those safeties up, which also plays against Arlington's offense because they're very run heavy in the first place. They had about almost a 2-to-1 run to pass ratio last season. I don't expect it to be anywhere near that this season with Perez there as a steady, figure at the quarterback position. But I still expect them to be very run heavy, which is, again, only going to play into the fact that he won't be pushing the ball a whole lot or won't need to because he's going to be into a lot of advantageous third down situations. But still don't expect them to score a lot of points in this game. Hopefully they get it together later on in the season, but this could be another losing season for Arlington and Bob Stoops, in my personal opinion. But moving on to the third game of the weekend, we've got the Birmingham Stallions at the Michigan Panthers in Ford Field. Michigan gets to open up their season with back-to-back home games. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this game?
I suspect the Stallions will come out and establish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think that'll put the Panthers offense in a tough bind, and I can see them making some mistakes they didn't make this week against St. Louis. So I see the Stallions winning the game. Will they run away and blow them out? I don't think so. I don't think that's their style of team. They're going to come out and ground and pound and force you to make mistakes and be consistent. So I could see the Stallions beating the Panthers potentially 24-12.
Okay, Stallions beating the Panthers 24-12. Something tells me we're about to hear a couple more Birmingham votes here. Travis, what are your thoughts on this game?
I share the same sentiment. I think Birmingham's going to get it done. I'm already seeing in the future right now, and I think there's a week 4 or week 5 matchup with DC and Birmingham, and I bet both teams are going to walk into that undefeated. Week 4, thank you. I see two teams who are going to be undefeated walking into that game, which is a beautiful story, by the way. But I have Birmingham winning this. If you're EJ Perry, you can't be making the same mistakes that you were this week against this Stallions defense. I think Matt Corral is going to come in confident. I think they're going to be slanging it. I think CJ Marable is going to be running all over it too. And the reason I was so shocked with your score is because it was the same exact score that I wrote down here. I wrote down 24-12 in favor of Birmingham also.
That's funny. That's funny stuff. Pierce, what are your thoughts on this one? Let me guess. Birmingham blowout.
Actually, that is not the case. One thing I really do want to implement for me is just that I think Matt Corral still has a lot more to improve. And I can tell, like, just with him, I'm not trying to walk into it being Alex Magoo, like, oh, yeah, we're going to throw, like, 4 or 5 touchdowns every game. I think it's going to be about relatively the same. hopefully at that point, I just really need to see more upside from Corral. Maybe he cuts down the turnovers, which 2 of them weren't his fault. But ultimately, I think the defense is going to do what they do best. And I think our offense is just too heavy to be good, even if Corral kind of plays the same. And for me, on that note, with the Panthers, is like their defense is going to make it a problem. And that's what's really concerning me just going into it is has Matt Corral against that defense going to be a problem? And that's why I think it's going to be a lot of a closer battle for it. And also Perry against same with Perry. Is he going to be a problem against our defense? I think it's going to be really defensively challenged. But I also think at the same time, there's just going to be big plays to be made. Like both offenses are making those plays. So ultimately, I do stick with Birmingham. Of course, I'm not going against my own morals there. But I do have my score being 27-22.
27-22. Michigan, right?
Come on. Birmingham.
Just kidding. All right, Michael, what are your thoughts on this game? Are you going to be the one person to pick Michigan?
I am not picking Michigan, but I am going to put Birmingham on upset alert. I did it in week 1 only because of the quarterback change. I'm doing it here in week 2 because if Michigan comes out and plays against the run like they did against St. Louis, it limits, in my opinion, what Birmingham is going to be able to do. They rely so much through the run game, through mobile quarterback plays, that is their bread and butter on offense. If Michigan can contain that and limit those big plays coming off the run game, this game could come down to like what we saw today against St. Louis on another field goal, 2-point victory, Michigan win. I'm picking Birmingham because I think Matt Corral is a difference maker. I think another week with this offense, I think eventually he will get into a rhythm where he will be a UFL MVP candidate. So I'm going to take Corral and the Birmingham Stallions in this game. But I'm with Pierce. I think it might be closer than people think, at least for 3 quarters. I don't know what the fourth quarter will look like. And I'm going to say 25 to, we'll say 18.
All right, one-score game and upset alert once again. So there's something about the Stallions that Michael's not liking so far.
No. Don't get me wrong. I love the Stallions. It was just the week 1 upset alert was just because of the quarterback stability, with it being a different quarterback heading into week 1. That was the only reason why I made that decision or put them on upset alert in week 1. This is actually just a little bit of gameplay upset alert here, possibly.
Okay, that's fair. I too have Birmingham winning, although I am expecting a lower scoring game. I was going to say 21-17. I think that ultimately this is going to be a tough game for them just based on matchup alone. But I do think that ultimately they're going to find the victory due to some miscues on Michigan's offense. I just do not have any faith in their offensive system right now, especially with EJ Perry at the helm. They've got Danny Etling sitting right there behind him. Just saying, I fully anticipate seeing Etling at some point this season, especially if Perry doesn't clean up these mistakes really, really quickly. But moving on to the final game of the weekend, which of course is the Houston Roughnecks at the DC Defenders in Audi Field. So Aaron, what are your thoughts? Is the beer snake going to be in full effect as they take home the victory?
I believe so. I think Houston's going to come in. I need to see what their quarterback situation looks like tomorrow and the lack of Mark Thompson. I expect Houston to struggle tomorrow against the Showboats, and I expect that to really amplify against DC's defense being aggressive. They need a quarterback that, once again, to beat a DC defense, you got to beat it over the top. So you need to be able to protect your quarterback. You need to be able to run the ball a little bit. You need to be able to keep them guessing so they can't just tee off on you. But from what I know about the Houston team, I think they're going to struggle against the pressure applied by DC. I think DC's offense is about consistency and taking what you give them. And if you can't produce offensively against their defense, they're just going to ride the game out. They're going to come out and be consistent and put points on the board. Maybe they might have, once again, they might have blow a team out, but they'll do enough to win the game because you're going to turn the ball over and give them a chance to maybe, win the field possession with their defense. So I predict DC to win that game. Not knowing much about DC's offense, but let's go 21-12. I like 12 as a low number just because of the conversion rule.
That's fair. That's fair. I like that. Travis, what are your thoughts on this game? I assume DC is going to take home the victory in your eyes.
Like I already said, I think DC is going to walk in, against Birmingham undefeated. It's really hard not seeing Houston play yet. We kind of know what we're going to get with DC, but Houston, like Michael said earlier, feels like they've had almost the most amount of turnover of every team or of any team in the league. So, and they are dealing with a lot of injuries right now too. So we're not exactly sure what they're going to look like. I think it's going to be competitive. I don't think it's going to be a DC blowout as much as I'd love to sit here and say we win by 35. But the score that I wrote down off the top of my head is I think it's going to be like a 22-17 in favor of DC.
22-17. Alrighty. Moving on to Pierce next. What are your thoughts on this game?
So, kind of similar circumstances with the Brahma show, but I'm just really kind of going off what my ideology of the teams are. And like I said, I think Defenders are a pretty solid team. I think their defense is pretty good. I think their offense is pretty good. We'll see how that running game goes. And the Roughnecks are just inconsistent. And until I see them play, that's how I'm going to think about it. And for me, we'll see if Mark Thompson can come back or if it's worse than we thought. I think the injuries and the inconsistency will play effect here. And on top of that, they're playing a DC with the Beer Snake and their fan base. I think ultimately the Defenders are my heavy favorites for this game. And, yeah.
Any score prediction for us?
Not yet. What the play.
Michael, what are your thoughts on this one?
First and foremost, I just want to say how bad it is that we're being robbed of Mark Thompson versus Abram Smith. I just want to put that out there. We're being robbed of that. It's so sad. Secondly, not seeing these two teams play, you got to go based off of what you know, based upon what you see with the rosters on paper. And again, the quarterback situation comes into play. Jordan Tiamu's been around for a little while. He's played in several different spring leagues. He knows he's the veteran. He knows what to expect. I don't think Guantanamo Bay is at the same level as Matt Corral is. So I think that the Roughnecks are going to be this kind of weird looking wild card team until we know for sure what they are. Justin Hall is a difference maker though at wide receiver, as long as he's still running through that offense for sure. Love that kid. And DC secondary is aggressive, and they knew that they had to they were susceptible last year to some of those plays. So Hall can easily be a difference maker in this game. I eventually think the Defenders will win this game because I think they revamped on defense. They felt that their front seven was so good that they cut Tim Ward, which was just insane to me thinking about that. But if you're that comfortable, I know that they returned Davin Bellamy as well. So I mean, if you're that comfortable that you can release a guy like Tim Ward and feel great, I feel bad to any offensive lineman that has a mediocre, any offensive line that's like mediocre. I think the Defenders will win this game. I think it'll be pretty handedly, unless Houston comes out and surprises me tomorrow. But I'm going to say probably 32-16. It's going to be the biggest gap, I think, than everybody else.
Go ahead, Travis.
I've got a question from Michael. Do you think we see Nolan Henderson at all, either in week 1 or week 2?
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I think that. I think he's too talented to keep off the field in some capacity. I just don't know what that's going to look like, whether it's going to be him working his way into a full-time starter or whether it's going to be something where they're just going to play him heavily until he gets to that point. But yeah, I would love to see him get into a role where we can rely on him. Definitely.
Absolutely. As far as this game goes, I have DC winning. I have it being a 22-16 victory. Much for the same reasons that you guys said before me. I just don't know what to expect from DC's offense. So much has changed without Abram Smith, without Lucky Jackson. That's his real last name, right? Okay, cool. I, for some odd reason, blanked his last name for a minute. But, there's a lot without man, I'm blanking the other receiver's name now too. The one who retired. Man, he was in the NFL for a brief minute, but anyway, they lost a lot of offensive talent, and luckily they're returning Jordan Teamu, which is huge. But at the same time, I just don't know what to expect yet, so I'm kind of undershooting it offensively. I do think they have all the talent in the world behind all those guys. I just want to see how it gels on the field early. I expect them to be a really tough team down the line and ultimately be in the playoffs once again, though. But with all that being said,
I just wanted to correct something. I kept saying we as the defenders with Nolan Henderson. I meant Houston. I kept saying we, though. I just realized I was saying that. I meant Houston.
You're right. You're all right. Minor mistake, I'd say. But we'll go ahead and get into everybody's final thoughts. So we'll start with Aaron, and then Aaron, after you wrap up your final thoughts, if you don't mind reminding us where we can check your content, and if you're on Twitter or anywhere, we can follow you.
Couple games. The UFL has potential. I think balance needs to be found between the XFL teams, the USFL teams. It's going to be a boring league if the USFL teams come out and beat the XFL every game. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be it'd be a boring time and probably would end the UFL, honestly. I think Birmingham winning another championship without much challenge is going to be not that much fun to watch. No offense. But my hope is the next set of games, we're going to see more balance. It's going to be more football, more parity, and that would be great for everyone. I think about the CFL. The UFL could be an American version of CFL if they can find balance and parity, and it could be a great time, or not if one team wins every year. You can find my content on UFL News Hub, CFL News Hub. I write predictions for the IFL. I have my predictions read. I don't have the podcasting technology y'all have, I guess, or maybe I'm not willing to do it yet. But I have my predictions read on In the Alley podcast by Cody Bryant. So you can check out his channel and his videos. He breaks down every IFL game. And basically, let's just have some great football. Go Brahmins.
Definitely. Moving on to Travis. Travis, what are your final thoughts for the night? And then also, other than this show, where can we find you?
I mean, final thoughts for the night are just going to be, I think we saw two entertaining games, two competitive games today, and I expect to see two entertaining games tomorrow. And I feel like we're just in for a very good season of some spring football. Very excited to be here on Sunday or on Spring Football Reports. That's the main place that you can catch me. I would like to get my fight coverage started back up at some point, but we'll see. UFC 300's right around the corner in April, so maybe I'll do a little special thing for UFC 300, which will, of course, be posted on, probably Spotify and other, Shady Sports Network things and such. I might eventually write some articles. We'll see. But just tune in for the year and we'll see what happens.
Definitely make sure you're subscribed here if you haven't already. Pierce, where can we find you and what are your final thoughts for the day?
Well, my final thoughts are, I think today was a pretty successful day. I think a lot of people were just ready to get this league starting. Even the people that were just clashing about the leagues and, which league is better and how their business ran. I think we're ready for this to just happen. So everybody can just shut up and just watch ball. So I think, the community is going to be better with it. And like Aaron said, I think eventually we will hit that parity and things will be better. But I think ultimately this is a great start to what we're seeing from the league so far. And I expect it to get better. And in regards of where you would find me, Pierce Sports Productions, That's where you see me on Instagram, Twitter, my YouTube. When it comes to content, the last couple of weeks, I posted a video about Quantez Stiggers, who's going to be in the draft class this year. Hopefully we see him get drafted. And I'm also cooking up another video for a certain punter in the UFL. Won't say any names, but unless you follow me, you'll know what it is. So that's what I have going on for me.
Definitely. Michael, where can we find you? And what are your final thoughts for the evening?
I don't think that it's going to be imbalanced with the USFL and XFL. I know the USFL teams won both games today, but I fully expect the XFL teams to kind of find their footing here down the stretch and get back into it. I think we will see the parity in this league because, like I said, you eliminate 8 teams, you're taking the best of the best. It will eventually level itself out. I can't say too much other than that. I mean, you can find me at MW77. 77 is spelled out. That's on X or Twitter or whatever the hell you want to call it now. You can look me up on Facebook as well, Michael Washington. You can also see all of my shows on Shady Sports Network on YouTube. Hit that like, subscribe button as well. I run a fantasy podcast for the NFL that deals with Dynasty, Campus to Canton, and Devy leagues. I do the Summer Showcase, which covers CFL and ELF. I do the Spring Showcase, which covers the LFA down in Mexico. And you'll see me pop up on some of these arena and indoor shows occasionally here and there as well. And obviously cover the UFL here in spring football, reports. So.
Absolutely. Speaking of indoor football, quick shout out. The Omaha Beef defeated the Colorado Spartans, unfortunately for my team. But, it was a great comeback victory by the Beef. They were down to the Spartans for quite a while, but ultimately come back in the fourth quarter there and claim the victory. And then right now we've got the Tucson Sugar Skulls and Naz Wranglers going on. And right now it's 39-34 Naz. But I wanted to shout out our show this morning. We had Isaiah McCorker on from the Naz Wranglers, who had a 3-touchdown game in his first ever professional matchup. He has just done it again. 3 touchdowns in today's game, and there's still a full quarter left to go. He's got 2 through the air. He's leading the team with 6 receptions for 65 yards, has 2 touchdowns there, ran twice for 25 yards, and has a touchdown on the ground. He's also their main kick returner. This kid's electric. So if you haven't checked him out yet, make sure you're watching these Naz Wranglers games, because honestly, if you want a kid that you can root for because of his mentality off the field, check out our episode this morning. You'll understand exactly what I mean. He is truly as humble as they come. Just wants to be great. So check that out. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you check out all these guys that are on the show tonight. Shout out to XFL Jim, who was also going to join us. And then we also had a couple other guests that were going to join that didn't end up making it. It's okay. We got a long season ahead of us. We'll make sure to get them all back. Aaron, we would love to have you back as well in the future. So I hope you enjoyed yourself. And to everybody who tuned in and watched, like I said, make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. Make sure you're telling the world about us, because we could definitely use the help. And thank you, everybody who tuned in.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.